So now that we've talked about the different origins of data, I'm going to introduce you to a new video that will be about some reminders about data quality. So the plan will be as follows. So first we'll do a little contextualization about the processes of data quality. Then we'll go into detail about the data workflow. Then about data quality and digitization and what we can do to ensure that our digitized data are good enough. And then we'll go into each category of data quality. That is to say, the metadata, the taxonomic information, spatial information, the collection information, and the descriptive information. So I'll begin with some background. So in order to understand data and data quality, we can think of it as an ocean of data at first. So there's really a lot of data right now. These last few years, data and biodiversity data have increased really a lot. So now we have hundreds of millions of data that are available. So it's really a great amount of data. And from this ocean of data, we can access to rivers of information. So we can extract information from the oceans of data. Then these rivers of information can become streams of knowledge if we interpret them correctly. And these streams of knowledge can, in the end, give some droplets of understanding. So we need to have a lot of data at first, so some oceans, in order to have only a few droplets of understanding, but it's really great to have these droplets. So now I will talk about fitness for use. So first of all, what is fitness for use? So here we have a little definition of this term. So we have to know that the data quality is a relative concept that depends on the use of the data. So as Chrisman was saying in 1991, the general intent of describing the quality of a particular dataset or record is to describe the fitness of that dataset or record for a particular use that one may have in mind for the data. So your data is not inherently good or bad. It only depends on what the person that will use it will do with them. So if the person will use this in good conditions, your data will be perfect. But sometimes some people might want to reuse your data for really particular research or works. And if they don't have enough information about your data, or if they didn't understand your data correctly, they might have or get the wrong result. So it really depends on the use that will be the use that will be done with your data. So first of all, we're going to describe the data workflow, and we will see that at each step of the workflow, the people have some responsibility about the data quality. So about data processing and quality, each institution should have at first a vision targeted on data quality. So it's really not necessary to reinvent the wheel, and we really have to use already existing standards. Now we have a lot of standards that we can use, especially in biodiversity. So if you want to create your own standard, there are really high chances that the standard you want to create already exists. So please have a look at what already is available, and you will have a lot of choice and a lot of standards and terms to use. Then you can seek efficiency. That is to say, in collecting data and in doing quality checks, you should really be efficient and avoid duplicating efforts. So try to communicate and have a really efficient workflow with people that are not doing the same things at different steps. Then you have to promote sharing of your data. So you can promote the sharing of your data, of your information, of the tools or the standards that you used. Then you can think at a larger scale. So if you work in a team of researcher, you have to think that maybe other teams of scientists will want to use your data or similar data. Then you can think about the people that will use your data at the international level, for example. So to give you an example, if all of your documentation is in French, it can be really useful for you if you only speak and work in French. But you have to think that maybe some people who don't understand French will want to use your data. So it might be a good idea to begin to translate your data and or your metadata and documentation in English or in another language that could be useful for the users. Then you have to cater, as I was saying, to the users and their needs. So for the languages, for the contextualization also. So if you have some very specific protocol that you use for collecting your data on the field, you may want to share it because it can be useful for people that don't know how you collected your data. So when they reuse your data, they will know what kind of protocol you used, and it will make sense for their work and their research. And you can also invest some time and maybe money in documentation and in creating metadata. So as I was saying, if you have additional information about the collect of your data, the protocols used, the people involved, you really have to compile them, these informations in metadata and in documentation. So once that this vision about data quality is ready, you have to put in place a policy implementing this vision, then an implementation strategy for this policy. So first of all, you have some precise goals at short, mid, and long term. Here we can see a graph about the data processing and quality process. So you can see that during the whole process, there are a lot of people involved. So in this graph, we will start at the beginning with the collection of the data, that is to say the field work. So here we have the collector. That is the person who is on the field and who observes or collects the data. Then once the data is observed and or collected, but transcribed in a field book, it will be added to documentation, then into a database. Then some people will work with the database and maybe do some documentation about the database, and then it can be shared on an intern network, and then at the end it's best if the data is shared on the internet in networks such as GBIF. So at each step, we have a risk of doing some errors. So for example, we can have errors of transcription here during the data informatization part. Then we can have some errors when managing the database. We can also have some errors in the documentation process or when people have remarks about the database. Then we can also make some errors, or at least share these errors during the publication process. So either in the intern network or in the internet. But luckily, we can we can notice and correct these errors at every step. So as I was saying, quality loss happens at every step. And the responsibility in terms of data quality has to be assigned at the earlier possible step of the process. So the collector is responsible for the data that he collected, and then at each step you have to have at least one person that can be assigned a responsibility for the data quality, and that will communicate with the person in the step below and in the step above, in order to make sure that the errors are well documented and noticed and corrected. So when speaking about sharing responsibilities, we can see that we have three main persons or groups of persons that are that can share the responsibilities about the data. So first of all, we have the collector or the collectors, who have to ensure that the labels and logs are as correct, complete, and readable as possible. Then he or she also have to make sure that the collection methods are vastly documented. So even if you think that it's not really interesting to share every bit of information you have about the protocol you use to collect some butterflies or some ferns or other biodiversity data, I really encourage you to note everything you can think about the context of the observation, about the context of the collection, and maybe one day this information will be useful to someone. You don't know who or when your data will be reused, so it's better to share too much information than not enough. And as a collector, you also have to make sure that your remarks are clear. So your writing should be at least readable from a use, and your remarks are to be clear and non-ambiguous. And then we have the second category of person that can have a share of the responsibility for the data, which is the curator or curators. That have to ensure that to be sure of the quality of the retranscription of the data collected in the field into the database. The curator of the data also have to do some regular validation tests and to regularly save and archive the data, but with keeping the previous versions, of course. Then the creator also have to ensure the respect of private life, of intellectual rights, and local traditions and sensibilities, and to provide quality documentation, including known issues about the data. So, for example, if you noticed some geographical issues in your data, but you don't have the time or the money or the possibility to correct them right now, you can always add some information in the documentation saying that, yes, we noticed that we have this kind of error in the georeferencing. We are working on it. We will correct them later, but for now, just be aware that we have this technical problem. And you can do that for every other type of problem that you might encounter within the creation process of the data. Then, of course, as a curator, you have to take feedback into account. So that's why it's really essential to communicate. So be it with your colleagues or with some unknown users that might have some remarks to do about your data. So when someone makes some remarks about your data, it's really best to take these remarks into account to ensure that the remarks are true, and to correct the data consequently. Then responsibility for the maintenance is also the curator work, and he also has the moral responsibility to improve data quality if and when possible for future use and users. And last but not least, the third level of sharing responsibilities is the user. So the user of data has the moral responsibility to inform data curators about mistakes and omissions in the data and documentation. Otherwise, the curator might not be aware that the data contains some errors or the documentation contains some errors. So that's why the users also have to provide feedback to define future priorities. So, for example, if you share data without georeferencing, maybe some users will complain that they don't have the coordinates for your data and they won't be able to use your data for niche modeling or any other kind of research that involves georeferencing. So maybe these users will get back to you and say, look, your data are really great. The identification is really amazing. And I know you did a lot of work with the creation of your data. So maybe in the future you can improve the georeferencing and it will be useful for everybody. And the user also has to determine whether the data are adequate for what he intends to do with them. And he also can decide not to use them if it doesn't think the data are adequate. So this is the user's responsibility to analyze the data he will download and to see if the data are really adequate for his work. So if you use data that is not adequate and then you have some mistakes in your results, it's not the fault of the data publisher, it's the responsibility of the user it's your responsibility because you didn't check that the data were indeed adequate for your work. So you really have to be careful about that. So you can have access and download a really gigantic amount of data now, especially in GBIF with the biodiversity data, but you also have to make sure that your data are adequate for what you intend to do with them. Then what can the digitization team do in order to ensure data quality? So first of all, we, as a digitization team, we can help to document the dataset through metadata and record level annotations. So as I was saying before, it's always better to have a lot of information than not enough. So everywhere you can add information about the protocols used, about the dates, about the places, about the people involved. Please add this information, even if you think it's not necessary or it's not useful. It might be useful to someone someday. So don't worry, just put the most information that you can. And then you also have to ensure the maximum quality possible when digitizing, such as the taxonomic data quality, geographical data quality, collection and collector data quality, and descriptive data quality. So in the next slides, we will see each of these categories of information and how we can improve their quality.